Holy mackerel is a signature phrase that any fan of Troy during the 1980s will surely recognize. Legendary voice of the Trojans Ralph Black was responsible for that historic call and many others during his 26 years as the play-by-play broadcaster for Troy football, basketball, and baseball. Black's holy mackerel call came as Ted Clem booted a 50-yard field goal as time expired to win the 1984 NCAA Division II National Championship game. Remarkably, that was just one of 4 national championships that Black called during his career, as his voice painted the picture for the 1987 football national title, in addition to the 1986 and 1987 baseball national championships. Black was also a part of the 1993 men's basketball run to the national championship game. A native of Montgomery, Alabama, Black called over 1,000 Troy sporting events from 1976 to 2002 and helped build the Troy State Sports Network into one of the largest of its kind in Alabama, at one point comprising 18 stations. He called 122 straight Troy football games, including Troy's first season as a Division I member. Still an important voice in the Troy community, Black is an on-air personality at WTBF, and he can be heard as the public address voice for Charles Henderson High School football, in addition to several local high school radio broadcasts.
3 seconds left. There's a snap. It's down. The kick is up. It's held after the turn. Yes, it is! It's good! The Trojans win! The Trojans win! Ted Clem has kicked a 50-yard field goal, and the Trojans win 18-17. Holy mackerel!
I started in 1976 with the basketball team calling play-by-play for Coach Wes Bazilia. As a matter of fact, another inductee, David Felix, played on that particular ball club. And it went on from there with sort of a mutual partnership with WTBF and the Troy University Athletic Department from that point on. Then in 1992, I believe it was, we went out and formed a partnership of our radio network, and I really couldn't have done it without the help of Bob Butterworth and Horn Beverage. We'd have never made it without those two. I'll tell you, they were significant in getting that network on the air, and we sort of built it on up from there. Memorable games for me, well, got to be the 1984 National Championship game when we were down at the Palm Bowl in McAllen, Texas, and Ted Clem kicks a 50-yard field goal to win it against North Dakota State. It was one heck of a ball game. And it was a unique thing. We were calling it via the telephone line, and yet some of the TV stations that were carrying it were on satellite, so they were a little bit delayed. And when I got back to Troy, people said, "I can't believe you called that field goal good when it wasn't even past the 20-yard line." But it was. I would never have called it until I had seen those referees raise their hands in the air. But what a victory that was over North Dakota State. And then 2 baseball national championships under the guidance of Coach Chase Riddle, who was a close friend of mine. And my son Ed happened to play on both of those ball clubs. Made a great trip a little bit later on with the Troy basketball team to Hawaii. Never forget that kind of trip. So we had some very memorable games that we were able to call in my 26 years. And speaking of memorable games, who can forget the very first official NCAA Division I football game that Troy played at Nebraska? Boy, what a game at Lincoln that day. I would say one of the most important guys in the whole athletic program to me was Robert Earl Stewart as athletic director. Remember, during his tenure, they had 10 national championships, I believe it was. And I was privileged to call a bunch of them, that's for sure. I'll never forget guys that have really been a help with me. I had a lot of guys that called to cover with me, from Bo Gaylord, Chad Gentry, Brent Bedsole, that is, and of course, Phil Paramore, Coach Bud Casey, a lot of them. We had a great crew. And on the sideline, a guy that I could have never made it without, and that's Jerry Miller. Also, I had one guy in the network, and that was Michael Buchanan. My goodness, I could never have made it without Michael. He was one of those guys that was computer savvy, dependable, on time, And when you had a problem, he didn't call you when you were 500 miles away from home and say, what do you want to do? He said, this is what I did to fix it. You don't find too many people like that. I cherish it. It's a great sacrifice on your wife to do these ball games because you're out of town a good bit, and even when the teams are in town, it takes a lot of time away from home to call those ball games. So my wife Cheryl has been a real peach for me. There's no question about that. Of course, I had 4 kids, 2 daughters and 2 sons, and of course I said Ed played the sports here, but from Ginger and Ed and Elaine and Greg, it's just been fantastic with me, and I've cherished them and their relationships my entire life. I said, holy mackerel, the Hall of Fame? Wow, that was tremendous, tremendous. I'm really as happy as I can be and grinning like a Cheshire cat.